Omar's presentation, I need to say is that I've been involved in sort of innovation management and IP management for the better part of 25 years, and what IT Works is doing is completely in agreement with the current sort of state-of-the-art thinking in innovation management. So it's actually very impressive, and it demonstrates that you don't need to be a huge multinational corporation with billions of dollars of assets in order to adopt an innovation management strategy. And that is, probably one of the more important things that come out of what IT Works is doing in that particular area. We're going to move into a somewhat different area now in terms of how to put together ideas. And we talked about taking ideas and creating inventions out of them and matching ideas to applications. This is a bit of a more detailed look at the process. I'm going to go through a bunch of this fairly quickly in the interest of time and the other subjects that I want to discuss. Basically, one needs to focus on areas that other people aren't focusing on. To come up with the 400 millionth variation on a certain idea in nanotechnology, for example, may yield positive results, but the odds are against you. One way, again, the most important thing you can do is basically focus your thinking around problems that you see in the environment. Again, that's another way of saying unmet market needs. And then start by focusing pretty broadly on a potential solution. And that's basically a good way to start, and then work on, as we'll see in a second, focusing that broad solution more carefully and elaborating on it to generate various pieces of intellectual property that will hope that, in theory, can be protected. Prior art is something that you need to deal with, and that is if a patent examiner in whatever jurisdiction decides that your idea is already in public domain, someone else has a patent, it's been published in the open literature, it's on a blog and a website that's available to the public, your patent protection petition, so to speak, will be denied. So you want to find this out sooner rather than later. You don't want to spend hundreds of hours putting together a patent application or doing research or hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, doing research in a given area that can't be protected. Or that you can't, because someone else already has a patent, that you can't pursue and can't license clearly. So spending a small amount of time up front, even doing fairly simple Google searches and searches of the U.S. Patent Office database and the like, is just a good practice before you start putting together ideas for consideration in an innovation workshop, for example. Again, prior art is a problem. However, the positive side of prior art is that it may spark some thinking of a solution that isn't part of prior art, would therefore be patentable. So it's good to sort of expose yourself to the prior art if it exists, and while it may be disappointing in terms of the specific idea you're looking at, it may spark the ways around the prior art that you could own. When thinking of the idea, you really want to break it apart and treat various aspects of the idea in sort of really you want to look at the separate aspects of a concept and see which of them are protectable and which of them are not protectable. Also, by splitting a an idea into its component parts, you're more likely to generate information that will spark other ideas. And so give yourself some options in terms of what to protect, and give yourself some options in case that a certain number of solutions to a given problem that you've come up with are already part of prior art. In terms of evaluating inventions for patentability, or whether you should patent them, I already showed you some a scorecard, which again I will be sending through TIEC for that deals with the marketability, more or less, of ideas. This decision scorecard deals with some of the issues that a certain company would consider in terms of whether or not it wants to patent an idea. In terms of, can you detect infringement? There's a school of thought that says that if you can't figure out whether somebody is infringing on your patent, then why bother patenting it? I'm not sure I agree 100% with that for a variety of reasons, which I won't get into right now, but it is a school of thought. Other issues that one may, want to rate an idea on a scale is, what the licensing value might be, how well does it fit into your existing patent portfolio, how novel is it, and how important it is to your existing customer base, in theory, if you could protect it, and what kind of barriers to entry does it present to potential competitors. Is it a key patent that will lock up an area, or sort of a subsidiary patent that will make it moderately difficult for someone to get into your business area, et cetera, et cetera. And again, these rating criteria can be weighted and can be changed based on information that will help you in your commercialization efforts. Patent analysis gives you a lot of information. Landscape analysis will provide you information about who's patenting in your area, who the main competitors in terms of the general creation of intellectual property in your area are, how the patent landscape has changed over time, are the patenting activities in a given area speeding up or slowing down, are the main competitors changing over time, which patents are most often cited in other patents in the area, so you sort of get the feeling for who the key competitor or competitors are in an area based on the number of citations they have in other patents. The problem with patent analysis, though, is that it tends not to take into account what's actually happening in the market for products and services that are based on the intellectual property that you're examining in an IP landscape analysis. In other words, just because Sony may have 100 patents in the area, in some area of wireless networks, for example, doesn't mean that Sony is necessarily producing products in that area using those technologies. And so what you need to do is engage in a market intelligence and competitive intelligence exercise in order to try to find out how a line of research is reaching a dead end in terms of commercialization, or whether there's a long period of development that looks to be needed in a given area before you can come out with products and services. All of this information feeds back into the essential decisions to whether one should patent some intellectual property and/or, basically get into the business or try to license a given piece of intellectual property. Again, the IP landscape analysis gives you a great feel for the status of the intellectual property, whether there are gaps in the intellectual property that a certain company has, and perhaps you have technology that can be licensed to them to plug the gaps, who the major players are, whether or not it's worth even putting in the effort to do research in a given area, and you know, the types of things that we've discussed. Basically, the combination of the landscape analysis and market intelligence allows you to make the decision as to whether or not to get into an area of research and or an area of commercialization. So together, looking at the IP landscape and looking at the market landscape, actually, you know, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And after doing a good job in terms of market intelligence and IP landscape analysis, you have a good chunk of the information you need to make a decision as how to handle a certain piece or pieces of intellectual property. So there are tons of tools that are out there to do IP landscape analysis and can help with market intelligence and competitive intelligence. They tend to be expensive, particularly the IP landscape analysis tools and services. But as Omar said, in terms of the innovation part of the equation, there is no need to say, well, if I can afford these tools, and I should just throw up my hands and not do anything. There are ways of using minimal costs, database searching, tools that we already have, like Excel, Microsoft Excel, you know, talking to people out of the industry associations where you participate, phone interviewing, that will give you a reasonable amount of information to start out with. At a certain point in your development as a company, you will reach a stage where the size of your portfolio and the complexity of your business operations are such that you will need to invest in IP analysis tools and services. Or you may be fortunate enough to live in a region where there is a government-sponsored set of services that allow you to have free or low-cost access to some of the more advanced tools. But you can do without it at an early stage and still get significant insights that can help you in your commercialization and innovation, for that matter, of intellectual property management needs. So, you know, people forget, and I remember since I'm old enough, that in the old days you did market research by going to the library, looking at journals, and calling people on the phone. Even today, fortunately, we can do some online computer searches and the like for low or no cost. And you know, the bottom line is you don't necessarily need state-of-the-art tools to start out with. Basically, this shows you how complex you can take an IP landscape analysis in terms of looking at which companies are building patents and technologies and an intellectual property portfolio based on a certain key patent. So this is useful for a number of reasons. It lets you see who the leader or leaders are in a given area. And also, if you happen to work for one of the leaders or leaders, you get a subset of companies who may be guilty of infringement. That could be monitored over time, or that could be good business partners. IBM in particular, for a company its size, tends to shy away from litigation. One person that I spoke to at the company often says that when they detect or get the feeling that someone may be infringing on IBM intellectual property, the first response is not to send a cease and desist letter from an attorney, but to basically go into the company and try to turn them into a partner and a cross-licensing candidate. That way, everyone has freedom to operate, and everyone avoids litigation costs. So, which is a good thing considering the amount of litigation that's going on today. What I want to do now is move into an area of creating business and technology plans and roadmaps. This is particularly important for smaller companies and startups, although there are certain aspects of this I think will be useful to larger companies as well. I'm basically going to use as an example a startup company that I helped found. It gives a sort of more of a real world feeling for the application of pretty straightforward business and technology planning techniques to move a business along. The company here is actually Strategic Polymer Sciences. It's a company whose purpose mission is outlined here. Yes, it's another corporate mission statement, and I know corporate mission statements can have a cliche kind of reputation. I mean, no one writes a corporate mission statement saying Company X will try to really mess things up and create pollution and misery for everyone around the world. I mean, they tend to be all focused on good and positive aspects. But one of the things that they do, and why it's reasonable to think about this for a reasonable period of time, is they tend to focus thoughts about what the core strategies of the organization need to accomplish. And focus is very important. You don't want to sort of be all over the place and disorganized. So in this case, we're looking at a company that wants to basically create value by leveraging the core competencies in electroactive materials and devices, and want to target markets in energy storage, health, and consumer electronics. There are dozens of other potential applications for these materials and devices, but before sort of deciding how to proceed as a company, the decision was made to focus in certain areas. Particularly if you're a startup company and you are looking for external investment, if you are not focused, you will not get investment. Because the last thing an investor wants to do is invest in a company that tries to be all things to all people. This is an example of a very basic sort of roadmap for the technologies that the Strategic Polymer Sciences came up with a few years ago. What we're looking here is moving from licensing capacitor materials to getting into higher margin specialty capacitors and film sales, and then moving into the medical business in terms of the ability of this material to act as an actuator for microsteerable cardiac catheters. The other evolution here is over time to spin out companies from the basic sort of R&D level company that Strategic Polymer Sciences still is today, and spin out subsidiaries that are directed to specific applications that are structured in a way that would be attractive to people in specific markets of medical and energy. With Strategic Polymer Sciences basically remaining as the holding company and technology generator. I mean, this gives a feeling to potential investors as well as to the staff of the notion of moving from licensing to generating more direct technologies and getting more involved in low volume manufacturing in certain specific areas. In the case of Strategic Polymer Sciences, the notion was from a roadmap and timing point of view that the focus early on was going to be in the specific applications in the capacitor segment, because we knew offhand that the developments in the medical area were going to take a much longer period of time to come to fruition. We're going to have a flexible business model that would enable us to address markets, the markets we wanted to be involved in, with subsidiary companies that would resemble, have management from the specific industries we were addressing. The key gating element to this particular strategy was going to be our ability to take the material that had been made in a very high performance form in a laboratory and move it to a volume production situation where the same quality would be evident, even making, you know, 5,000-foot rolls of this particular thin film material. You also need, when you're putting together a business plan, to have a sort of realistic view of the evolution of the markets that you're going to be involved in. What specific segments are you going to enter? Why are you going to enter them? And what kind of market penetration can you have over a period of time? And this shows a breakdown of the total market value, what we thought our market penetration could be, and what we thought the markets for the device as well as the materials could be, in order to make our investors more comfortable with you know, the fact that we can generate revenue in a time period of, you know, less than 1 billion years out. That is one of the key things for new companies that we suggest, that you develop some sort of plan to generate revenue at as an early stage as possible. Again, we were looking at the generation of early stage revenue based on licensing in the capacitor segment, as well as getting a sufficiently large number of government grants and research contracts from larger companies. We're trying to generate an R&D investment plan that would be funded mostly from external sources so as to conserve our working capital. This is another thing that investors like to see, is the ability to conserve their investment and generate other forms of income, even if it's small, so that you know, the investment can go further, getting farther along the route to complete self-sufficiency. We were actually able to form an alliance with a major chemical company who decided to basically offset a good chunk of the cost of the volume manufacturing setup that we needed in order to perfect the industrial volume production of these dielectric thin films. In return for the efforts of this particular chemical company to help with the scale-up, we basically gave them an exclusive contract to manufacture the materials for us on the commercial market. So we created a win-win situation, which is something that a lot of small companies really would benefit by doing, is forming some sort of an alliance with a larger company and developing a win-win situation. This is another thing that gets into the business planning stage, is to do cash flow projections. We're not going to go through this slide in any kind of detail, but you can see that when looking at how long your investment is going to last and what your income projections are and your expense projections, you need to sort of do a very detailed analysis to make your shareholders confident in the fact that you can actually carry out your R&D and commercialization program. And this goes through even in pro forma projections and income statements. What a lot of companies that are, particularly companies that are starting out, fail to realize is that you need to worry about the details. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not inherently a detail-oriented person. But when you're dealing in the world of investment and business planning, there's an aspect of it that does require the ability to get detailed breakdowns of finances done in such a way as to satisfy your board. We're going to now talk about leveraging technology to develop new income streams. Any questions about the business plan? planning and roadmaps? Okay. And talking about commercialization engines, you're really looking at, again here, a pictorial view of what we discussed a few minutes ago in terms of the overlap of market intelligence, IP landscape analysis, and business strategy in order to put together a client value proposition that will enable you to sell your technology or services and products based on technologies into the marketplace. There are different approaches to IP management in terms of your view about hoarding IP and locking it away, or on the other extreme, licensing the technology to anything or anyone that moves. The hoarding IP approach only works if you have absolutely no need or project that you will never have any need for anyone else's IP, that your IP wouldn't be valuable to anyone else, and that by hoarding your IP, you're going to generate such a high degree of competitive advantage in the marketplace that you are going to be very, very successful without having to share IP or enter into any kind of IP agreement. The problem with that is that there are two problems. One is you are going to miss any value that you could get from past licensing your IP into other industries. But more importantly, it's become almost impossible for a company to come out with products based solely on its own IP. One example that we like to talk about is the Apple iPad. We had some of our patent engineers do a cursory analysis, and their conclusion was that there were between 5,000 and 10,000 patents involved in the IP that went into manufacturing an Apple iPad. And Apple does not have 10,000, all of those patents. And so in order to get that out to the marketplace and be reasonably free of patent lawsuit risk, Apple had a cross-license technology with a very large number of players that had the various aspects of the software and hardware technologies that are used in the iPad as their intellectual property. And that's becoming the rule rather than the exception, particularly in consumer-facing markets. And so if you adopt an IP management strategy that basically says, what's ours is ours, period, and that's what we're going to use, looks like you're going to be fairly limited in what you can do in the marketplace. On the flip side, on the other extreme, if you basically license everything and cross-license everything, you risk the situation of not having any competitive advantage at all in an area, and getting more exposed to rapid commoditization of your products and services. Ultimately, you exhaust your IP portfolio, and it becomes more and more difficult to license your integrated property. And you're making it clear to the world that you're willing to basically sell everything, and it's from a competitive viewpoint, intellectual property basically, out-license a lot of their technologies, particularly to companies that are not in their core industries. And with creative licensing, you could actually help companies develop that can become your suppliers or become your customers, as the case may be. So you actually can contribute to the creation of your own intellectual property and business ecosystem. By cross-licensing, you're basically trying to guarantee yourself freedom of action in a given area, and that's sort of the IBM strategy, and you're guaranteeing yourself, your cross-licensing partner, the same freedom of action and freedom at least from lawsuits on your end. And that is, you know, if you need to have knowledge and you don't have access to get a product on the market or access to the intellectual property, the only way to really get that is to cross-license. I remember even years ago reading various analyses that essentially said that every digital camera that's on the marketplace is the result of just a huge amount of cross-licensing. That, you know, Sony and Nikon and Olympus and, you know, all of the players in the Canon and the digital camera area, none of them have the IP by themselves to get a camera into the marketplace. And so the only reason why there are digital cameras in the marketplace without everyone trying to sue the pants off of each other is because they basically realized that then enter into cross-licensing. You know, company X's autofocus technology gets cross-licensed, so they have access to company Y's flash metering technology, and backwards and forwards and around we go. That's the only way to actually compete in the marketplace. Also, companies or groups of companies can often get together and pool intellectual property in order to try to force the creation of standards that would benefit their own products and services. And last, I want to talk about the issue of focus. In order to be successful, you need to focus in a number of areas. I know this is going to sound a little bit like a cheerleading session, but it's true, and it's, I think, a good way to conclude the session today. The companies that are successful, whether they're startup companies or small companies trying to grow, have an abiding belief in their business model and business plan throughout the organization. You can't be wishy-washy about this. Yes, you have to be open to change if circumstances warrant, but you need to really believe that you've done your homework and you're on the right track. You need to have an abiding belief in your team, both your management team as well as the teams throughout the organization. There needs to be a belief that people will do what it takes to implement the corporate strategy and plan, and that you can trust that people will do what it takes to implement the strategy and plan. There needs to be a focus and an abiding belief that if you do these things, you will succeed. If there's doubt in that, then you haven't done your homework in terms of putting together a consensus business model and plan. Perhaps most importantly, you need to keep it simple. One of the biggest problems that companies, small companies, and medium companies, and startup companies make is that they expand too quickly. That they decide that they've got the intellectual property in an area that's extremely hot. That they have the answers to various unmet needs in a variety of industries, and they attempt to address all of those industries at the same time. And that is a problem. Even if in fact you do have the magic key to solve problems in a large number of industries, and even if ultimately if you executed it correctly, have a plan that would result in being the next IBM at some point way down the road, if you try to diversify too quickly, you're going to spread your resources too thin, you're going to spread your focus too thin, and you're going to wind up not executing in any of the areas that you want to follow. And so you need to avoid the temptation to implement all of your really good ideas and really good market solutions at the same time. For people who are in the entrepreneurial startup world, if an investor believes that you're going to be spreading yourself too thin, that person is not going to invest. It's as simple as that. And though, again, it's one of these things that seems obvious, the reality is that at least 50 to 60% of the pitches that I've heard from entrepreneurs suffer from being too diffuse and trying to do too many things too quickly. So you need to be careful there. And last but not not least, you need to have a focus on communicating your vision and the value proposition to your customers as well as your staff. Again, having everybody on the same wavelength and pulling in the same direction is extremely important. And ultimately may be just as important, if not more important, than having a really good IT management and innovation management strategy. So I'm going to conclude there. We've covered an awful lot of space today, and because of the fact that we're trying to address subjects and across a really broad range and touch on things that would be interest to companies in various size ranges and levels of maturity. I apologize in advance for leaving things out here, there, and everywhere. But if people have questions, please feel free to contact me by email. If you don't have my card, the folks at TIEC know how to get a hold of me. And if you have any questions now, certainly I'd be glad to entertain them. So thanks for sitting through a very, very long session. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today.
I have a question about keeping it simple. If you're a company that has a platform, or you have created a platform that works in one or two industries, and that's quite easily transferable to others, and if you're relying on partners to sell, market, business development, and so forth, it becomes very difficult to say don't enter into these other two industries. Sorry, because there is the first mover advantage of being in the vertical, and so if you avoid that vertical, you might just totally be out of it by the next year. So what are your thoughts on that, please?
It's a matter of timing. I mean, you hit on a good point. It's a matter of timing and the amount of effort it's going to take from your company, if any, to manage the activities of your partner or to supply your partner. So, for example, if I'm a distributor for your product, and I know that I could go to these 8 other industry verticals and sell them things, that's great as long as you can supply it. All right? And so you need to be sure that if you're going to go into an early diversification kind of strategy through a distributor, that the demands it's going to make on you, your company, as the supplier, are things you can do. The last thing you want to do is promise people, that you're going to ship them whatever your product is, and then have to tell them, oh gee, we're 12 months behind because we don't. So you need to coordinate the need, your needs in terms of managing the joint activity with a distributor or a partner, and